Hello, friends. Linda Lord here. Arts can teach at home. Today, we're going to be focusing on storytelling. There are basically three elements in any storytelling event: the story, the teller, and the listener. You can think of these as kind of like the three corners of a triangle because each one has to work together in order to support the entire event. The story is the thing that's going to be shared. Most of the time, a story will have a beginning, a middle, and an end. Usually, there's also some type of conflict or a problem that needs to be solved. Often, there is a change in the main character. We've studied this previously when we've talked about the character arc, how the character begins the story, how the character is impacted by the events of the story, and then how the character is changed by the end. Also, there might be a message or a point that the story is trying to make. Sometimes storytellers tell their stories for pure entertainment value. Sometimes they want to make the audience laugh or cry. But sometimes in these storytelling events and in the story themselves, there's a life lesson to be learned or some moral that a particular culture is trying to impart to the next generation. Now, the second part of a storytelling event is the teller. That's you and me. We take the moments in the story that we want to tell and we shape them into an oral narrative that will get and hold the audience's attention. The storyteller is so important that I'm going to be doing a special separate lesson on that. Watch for it. It's the one on character embodiment. The third element is, of course, the audience. Every story and every way that a story is told is for the benefit of the listener. So one audience might like to laugh. There's going to be humor in that story. Another audience might be there to learn something new. So that story would have to contain some form of information. The audience or the listener, as the recipient of the story, determines the success of the storytelling session. When I'm asked to tell a story, I start with getting to know my audience. Who will be there? Why are they there? How old are they? Do they share any common interests? And what type of story do they want to hear? I will also ask how long I have to tell my story. If you're ever asked to tell a story, that's a really important question to ask. It's kind of like giving your speeches. If you have to give your speech in 3 minutes, you don't want to go over. If you're doing a storytelling in a storytelling event, often there will be storytellers before you and there will be storytellers after you. The people who are running the event want to make sure that everybody only uses the amount of time they're given. Otherwise, the event can go way, way too long. So after I've asked those kinds of questions, I choose the best story for the topic. And then I make decisions about what parts of that story to emphasize, depending on the needs of the audience. I tell a story about pebbles and diamonds that I sometimes will change the details depending on the age of my audience and what the teacher expects the message to be. Finally, I will practice the story using different props, playing with body language cues like waving my arms or plugging my nose. And sometimes I'll try out different verbal emphases where I pause for effect, or I talk really fast because something exciting is happening and I want to use my voice to help communicate that. Or it might be that something scary is about to happen. And so I want to use a softer voice, but it still has to project so that students at the back of the room can still hear me. And then when it's time to tell the story, it's live, much like theater that way. And anything can happen. Here's an example. Once upon a time, there was a grand ruler who had no children of his own and decided to choose from the youth in his country who should succeed him as ruler. He brought all the youth together, and in that crowd there was one young boy who had very reluctantly attended because his father had told him he must go to represent their family. While standing in front of that great leader, this young child was quite nervous, and the leader looked so big and strong and capable. He waited, as all the other youth waited, for the leader to speak. I am going to choose my successor based on their skills and abilities. Each person in attendance today will receive a packet of seeds. I want you to go back to your small villages, your towns, your homes where you came from, and plant the seeds that I have given you. 6 months from now, at the end of the season, I want you to bring back what you have grown. At that time, I will choose my successor. The leader waved to the crowd and went back in his home. Well, this young boy was feeling a little more confident because he actually came from a farming family, and he knew that he was able to grow things. He had been watching his father and his grandfather before him, and he knew how to tend to seeds to get the best possible harvest. And so all of the youth that were in attendance received their seeds and went back to their homes. And our hero took the seeds, found the very best earth that he could, took the seeds and planted them carefully in a pot that he had taken from his father's shop. And he watered those seeds, and he put them out in the sun, and nothing happened. He continued to care for those seeds and put it in the very special sunny spot and measured the water that the seeds got, but still nothing happened. When the 6 months were over, the father came looking for his son. Why do you hesitate? It's time to take your pot to the leader to show him what you have done. I am not taking an empty pot to the leader of our country. All of the other people will laugh at me, and he will find me a disgrace to you and to grandfather and to our legacy of farming. I'm a farm boy and could not grow his seeds. I have taught you to finish what you start, said the father. And so reluctantly the young boy took his very sad-looking pot and traveled back to the leader's home. Now, as he was getting closer, he saw the other youth carrying very odd things. Some had tall plants, some had short plants, some had plants with flowers, others had plants with fruit. It made no sense to our hero. As the youth gathered in the courtyard, the leader emerged once again from his home. Who has brought me what they are able to grow? And he started to look. and he was looking very carefully, as though looking for something quite specific. The leader's eyes stopped as he saw the pot of our young hero. He turned and whispered something to one of his assistants, and his assistant came down to our hero and invited him to come up to meet the leader. "Young boy, what is in your pot?" "The seeds that you gave me did not grow. I tried everything I know what to do. I come from a farming family. I chose the right soil. I watered them carefully. I put them in the sun and took them out of the sun when it got too warm, and still nothing grew." And our hero hung his head in shame. "Why do you not look at me in the eye?" "I'm embarrassed." "Why come and show me this empty pot, then? Why not just stay home?" "I really would have preferred to stay home, sir, but my father raised me to finish what I start, and even though I did not have the results you were searching for, my family honor brought me here today." The leader paused, scratched his chin, scratched his head, looked again out into the audience and said, "Young boy, what do you see when you look out?" "I see a lot of different stuff." "Yes, and that is why you shall succeed me in leadership." "But, sir, I didn't grow anything." "I know," said the leader. "I gave everyone seeds that were incapable of growing, and you are the only one with an honest harvest." The end. Now, what do you think the meaning or the message of that story might be? Some have told me it's perseverance. Some have said follow the rules. Some have said honesty is the best policy. But that's why I love storytelling, because I give the story as a gift to you. And then depending on what your circumstances are or what situations you find yourself in, you're going to each take something a little bit different away from the story. So now it's your turn. Think of a story that you'd like to tell. Practice it, and then find an audience. Even if it's a sibling or a parent or a grandparent or your teacher, all you need is one person to listen, and you have a storytelling event.